first successor after the death of the Prophet. He was the first man to accept Islam. He was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Join Sunnahfollowers every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as islamqa Shahid shares his life story.
Hey, I got a couple questions for y'all. The first one, who is your Lord? What is your religion? Who is your prophet? Now, I know this sounds crazy, but if you're one of those people that have been trying to get information and you come across this, or even this. All right, take a listen.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Sister Lailanasheeba, the Managing Director and Founder of Sunnahfollowers Online Islamic University. As you know, we have classes every day beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we cover everything from Aqidah, which is your belief system, to Seerah, which are the stories of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the story of the companions. Please join us every day beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are broadcasting and streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, DLive, Trovo, and Twitch. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, anyone who learns and memorizes the names of Allah can only be guaranteed paradise. But learning these names is not easy. You have to ponder the meaning and then see how Allah shows us that He is what He is before applying it to yourself and your relationship with others. Join Sunnahfollowers who start a lailanasheeba and learn and watch your relationship with Allah grow. These are two sisters, daughters of the most perfect woman and man ever created. Their names are Ruqayyah and Kulthum, and they are the daughters of Khadijah and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Join Sunnahfollowers every Monday and Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern as we share stories of the heroines of Islam. Alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to our series entitled The Heroines of Islam. The Heroines of Islam, and this has become one of the most provocative series that I have ever taught, because the way that I'm teaching about these female companions is unlike how many others are teaching or have taught, because what I'm doing is not only engaging or indulging in their life and sharing them with you, but also trying to use their life example as a means of you and I being able to handle our trials in life as well. And that's the way it should be. Why? Because these women were not just heroines of Islam. They are our mentors of Islam. They are our role models of Islam. You know, one of the things that I tell the new converts, the new sisters when they convert to Islam is, of course, you have to focus on Aqidah, learning what the true belief system of the Muslim is. And then you have to work on changing your character to that which is pleasing to Allah. And a lot of the sisters say, well, how should the Muslim woman's character be? It should be as those female companions were. Your character should be as Aisha's was, as Hafsa's was, as these females were, as Ruqayyah, Zainab, radiallahu anhu. All of these women, you know, they were the examples for us, the role models for us, how to be a good wife, how to be a good mother, a good daughter, how to strive in the way of Allah, how to balance your obligations to Allah and your obligations to your husband and your obligations to your children and to your family and your community. These women were the epitome of that. And I started this series off by giving you the stories of the Prophet's wives. And so now what we're doing is embarking upon the journey of his daughters. I gave you the story of Fatima, radiallahu anha, who was the fourth most perfect woman ever created. And then last week, I gave you the story of her older sister, Zainab, radiallahu anha, and hers was a story of sacrifice. Hers was a story of how even when we're put to test with our husbands, we don't choose them over Allah either. Well, today I'm going to do the second oldest daughter of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and her name was Ruqayyah. And hers is also a story of sacrifice. It's also a story of beautiful love too, because she was the one who first married Uthman radiallahu anha. So let's open up the PowerPoint and let's begin this beautiful journey into the life of Ruqayyah radiallahu anha, who was the second oldest daughter of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But to begin this discussion, what I am going to do to begin this discussion, we have to include her with her sister Kulthum, who was born right after her, because their journey, their struggles were entwined. And the reason being because, first of all, they were just a year apart in age, and they were so much alike. And secondly, they were two sisters who were married to two brothers. So we're going to begin the tale by, first of all, speaking about them both. And let's put the PowerPoint up on the screen. And again, today I'm going to start with Ruqayyah, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was the second oldest. Okay? When Allah sent down the verse of the Quran, which says in the interpretation of the meaning, warn your tribe and your close relatives. This was a verse of the Quran that was sent down, one of the first verses sent to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he received the call to prophethood. Here in this verse, Allah commanded him, you know, charity begins at home with your family, with you. So before you call anyone to Islam, start with your family and your tribe. So what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did was went out and climbed the mountain known as Safa. And when he reached the top, he yelled out so all the people can hear. He said, "Why Sabaha?" And the people said, "Who is that?" And they became worried because this was the call that the Arabs would make if they saw an enemy approaching or something. So the people ran from out of their homes, you know, ready, wondering who was it that was getting ready to attack them. And they stood underneath the mountain. They gathered around the Prophet, and he said to them, "Do you see that if I were to tell you that an army was approaching from the other side of the mountain, would you believe me?" And they said, "Yes, we would believe you because you've never told us a lie." He said, then if you would believe me if I told you that, why won't you believe me now? He said, I am a warner sent to you by Allah to remind you of the coming of a severe punishment. And then Abu Lahab, who was his uncle and who was also one of the leaders of the tribe, he said, may you perish, Muhammad. You called us away from our business just for this. And then he walked away. Okay, so this was right in the beginning when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received the call to prophethood. Okay, he was on his mission of trying to convince the Quraysh that he was a prophet, that he was a messenger sent by Allah to call them back to the truth. But when Abu Lahab made that statement, that's when Allah sent down another verse saying, perish the hands of Abu Lahab. You perish. His money and his children will not help him. He will be burnt in a fire of blazing flames, and his wife too. She will carry the wood on her back, and in her neck is a twisted rope of a date palm. So here Allah defended the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when Abu Lahab called himself cursing him. Okay, and this marked the beginning. The reason why I begin the story of Ruqayyah with this is because this marked the beginning of the fitna, or the hardship and struggle that Ruqayyah would face. So when Allah sent down that verse of the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam shared it, there was a poet amongst the Arabs, okay? And he wrote a poem about Abu Lahab's wife. He said, what is this rope that all the people see in the middle of hell, which will not be hidden from anyone? All other ropes in this world are made of animal fur, but the rope of Abu Lahab's wife will be made of palm fiber. Subhanallah. And when Abu Lahab's wife, her name was Jamil, when she heard this poetry about her, and she heard those verses of the Quran revealed about her, she became angry. So she went to go meet to see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was sitting near the Kaaba with Abu Bakr, and she picked up a rock and she was going to confront him. But when she went to confront him, he was not there. All she could see was Abu Bakr. So she said, Abu Bakr, where is your friend? She said, I was told that he verbally attacked me with his poetry. She said, by Allah, if I find him, I will hit him in his mouth with this rock. She said, because I too am a poet. Now remember, guys, when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received the revelation, the Quraysh began to slander him. They accused him of being crazy. They accused him of being a poet. They accused him of being a magician. They didn't want to accept that these were the words of Allah. Okay? They believed in Allah, but they did not believe that Allah was the only one worthy of worship. So they worshiped idols alongside with him. Okay? So Jamil, she was a poet. So she said, he wants to compose poetry about me. She said, I got a poem for him. And this is what she said. She said, we disobey Mudamman. And this is an Arabic word that means the opposite of Muhammad. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam means the one who is praised. Well, this word means the one who is reprimanded. So she said, we disobey the one who is reprimanded, and we reject his affairs, and we renounce his so-called religion. And then she walked away, thinking she had done something. But she didn't realize that it was she who was being reprimanded through the verses of Allah. And when she walked away, Abu Bakr looked at the prophet, because the prophet was sitting right there the whole time. And he said, "Oh, prophet of Allah, do you think she saw you? Because she didn't talk to you. She talked to me." The prophet says she was not able to see me because Allah blinded her eyes from seeing me. So when she walked upon up to hit the prophet, Allah made him invisible to her. Okay, to protect him. So she didn't see that he was still sitting there the whole time, which was one of the miracles of Allah that Abu Bakr witnessed. And so this is when all the drama began for the prophet's daughters. Two of them who were married to Abu Lahab's sons and Jamil's sons. And that was Ruqayyah radiallahu anha and Kulthum. They were the two older daughters of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were like maybe a year apart in age. Ruqayyah was born after Zainab, and Kulthum was born right after Ruqayyah. And they grew up together. They were so close and they looked so much alike that the people thought they were twins. You guys know how Norto and Aisha look like twins, and because they're just a year apart. Well, that's how Ruqayyah and Kulthum were. They looked identical, and they were very, very close, and their closeness increased when Zainab, their older sister, had gotten married and moved away. Okay. And right before the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received the call to prophethood, he had just married those two daughters of his to the two sons of Abu Lahab. Okay, subhanallah. Abu Talib tells us about how these two were married. Abu Talib came to the prophet one day and said, "We come seeking the hands of Ruqayyah and Kulthum in marriage. We hope that you will not make their marriage difficult to your cousins Utbah and Utayba." Both of them were the sons of Abu Lahab and his wife Jamil. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was approached with this marriage proposal for his two daughters, he asked for some time so he could speak to his wife about it. So he went to his wife Khadija radiallahu anha, and he discussed the marriage proposal with her and with the two girls. And he decided that he would take their advice. And as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was speaking, Khadija remained silent. And the reason why she remained silent was because she knew that Jamil, who was the wife of Abu Lahab and the mother of the two men that wanted to marry her daughters, was a hard-hearted woman, was an evil woman. And she knew that if she didn't like Ruqayyah and her sister Kulthum, she could make their life miserable. But on the other hand, Khadija was silent too, because she didn't, it was the culture of the Arabs back then, you know, to not, to keep the ties of kinship strong. And she did not want to break her husband's tie of kinship with his family. So she let the prophet decide, and she just prayed for the best. And again, this is right before he received a call to prophethood. So Ruqayyah and her sister Kulthum were married to the two sons of Abu Lahab immediately. The marriage contract took place in an atmosphere mixed with anxiety. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave his daughters away in marriage and prayed for their blessings. And that night, as they celebrated the wedding, a light gleamed and illuminated the city and removed Mecca of its darkness. And that was the beginning of the call to prophethood to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was commissioned as a prophet, that's when his wife Khadijah thought of her daughters and began to panic, because she knew how evil Jamil was. And she knew that she would mistreat her daughters, knowing that their father was professing to be a prophet. And Khadijah, radiallahu anha, was correct. Because as soon as the Prophet Muhammad announced who he was to the Quraysh had a meeting. And they began to conspire as to how to deal with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one of them suggested, you just accepted two of his daughters and married them to two of the sons of two of the great chief's sons. Why don't we send them back to him? And that's going to be disgraceful for him. And he'll have to figure out how to take care of them. And that'll keep him from preaching about his prophethood. So Ruqayyah and her sister were returned back to their father's home in humiliation and distress. And they had just gotten married. So you can imagine how humiliating that was. And after that, Abu Lahab and his wife began to harass the Muslims and torture the Muslims. And Abu Lahab kept incessantly attacking the Prophet at every chance he could. He would call the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam names. And he no longer cared about their blood ties. And this was because he was an evil man. And so this went on for a long time, okay? And then finally, one day, the Prophet announced to his wife, Khadijah, he said, "Oh, Khadijah, the time for sleep is over." The vicious attack against him and his companions had intensified, especially for the people that were weak. And that's when Ruqayyah and her sister began feeling a great change in their father's house, because their father had become the main target for persecution and torment. And even they were harassed. They were mocked and made fun of because they had been divorced. And that was a bad thing back then. Back in those days before Islam, for a woman to be divorced, to be married and sent back, that was disgraceful. But despite the people harassing them and teasing them, Ruqayyah and her sister remained strong, and they stood with their parents, hoping for a reward from Allah. And it wasn't that long after that Allah sent down the suggestion to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Ruqayyah marry one of the dearest companions, and that was Uthman radiallahu anhu. Now, Uthman, for those of you who don't know, he was very, very handsome, extremely handsome. And not only was Uthman handsome, he was young. He had never been with a woman before. He was a virgin man. He never drank. He never gambled. He was a good guy. Plus, he was a multi-millionaire. He came from a noble clan of the Quraysh, and he was very wealthy. He was a multi-millionaire. every woman and had their eye on him. But it was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's daughter Ruqayyah who he ended up marrying. And this was a blessing in and of itself, okay? Because not only was Ruqayyah now married to a man that was handsome and good and rich, but also a man that could protect her and give her the happiness that she was not able to experience being married to her first husband, because of she had married, and as quickly as she was married, she was sent back. Okay? And to show how the women knew that Uthman was a good catch, the Quraysh had a lullaby that they used to sing to their children. The women used to sing to their daughters, by Allah, I love you, just as the Quraysh loved Uthman. That's how much of a good catch he was. But after he married Ruqayyah, the lullaby changed to the best two people who ever met each other were Ruqayyah and Uthman, and they were the perfect match. Ruqayyah was extremely beautiful, whereas Zainab looked like Khadijah, who was beautiful. Ruqayyah and Kulthum resembled their father, and they say that both girls were extremely beautiful, and Uthman was so handsome. So when he and Ruqayyah married, it was the perfect match. It was like soulmates. They were such a beautiful couple that the people used to just stare at them as they walked. And by the way, this was before the laws of hijab came down. So whenever Uthman and Ruqayyah would walk down the street together, the people would just look, because she was beautiful and he was so handsome. It was a beautiful relationship, and Ruqayyah loved him, and that's probably why. And by the way, this picture here, by the way, guys, I removed this picture, but the reason why this picture is here is because it's auto-generated by this program that's being used. You type in the word and it brings out Arabic. This is what this picture brought up. Okay, but and I replaced this picture with a different one. I had to go in there, but I forgot to do the PowerPoint, but I replaced the other pictures with a better. That's a handsome man, but I don't like that picture of that woman. So anyway, but they were a beautiful couple, that whenever they would walk the street together, the people would look at them. They would look at them. And we have a hadith, whereas Az-Zubair, this is an authentic hadith. Az-Zubair tells us that one day the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent a gift to Uthman and Ruqayyah, and he gave it to a man to take to them. And he was waiting for the man to come back to tell him if they liked the gift. But the man came back late. So the Prophet said, I know why you were late. He said, shall I tell you what took you so long? He said, you stood there admiring the beauty of Uthman and Ruqayyah, and you couldn't stop looking at how beautiful they were. That's why you're late getting here. And the man said, yes, this was true. And this was before Allah sent down the verses of hijab. Okay. So Ruqayyah was extremely beautiful. Okay. And Uthman extremely handsome. And they were that perfect couple that whenever they walked together, people just looked. And you have some people like that when you're missing, maybe it's you and your husband. You and your husband look so well together that when y'all out in public, people just stare, So it was one of those type of things. That's how beautiful a couple they were. And when the Quraysh persecution against the Muslims intensified, The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam received the command from Allah to allow some of his companions to migrate to Abyssinia. And remember, guys, Allah doesn't place a burden on any of us that's too great to bear. Ruqayyah was the second oldest of his daughters, but she was also the most weakest too. And what do I mean by that? I mean that she was a strong woman, but she didn't have the resilience that Fatima had. And she didn't have the resilience that Zainab and Kulthum had. She was more sensitive than they were. She was a little bit more sensitive, which is another reason why the Prophet married her to Uthman, because he knew that the people respected Uthman. Everybody loved Uthman. So she wouldn't receive much persecution being married to him. Okay, so when Allah sent down the command to migrate, that's when it was suggested that she be amongst the first to go, because the Prophet wanted to protect her, because she was more sensitive than the other girls were of his. And you know, some of us are like that. This is why we have to be careful posting up pictures of dead people on your Facebook page. I don't know why you guys do that when the Prophet Muhammad said that we should have dignity. Don't show people at their worst. But I don't know why you Muslims are doing that. But a lot of people can't stand to see that. Some people can look at death and it doesn't bother them. But other people are weaker than that. Well, that's how Ruqayyah was. All that persecution that the Muslims were going through, the abuse, she couldn't handle it like her other sisters did. So that's why it was suggested to Uthman that he take her, even though Uthman wanted to stay to be with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Mecca. The Prophet told him, no, take my daughter away. Look out for her. She's more sensitive of my children. Okay. And after he went to Uthman first and suggested that he take Ruqayyah, the Prophet then announced to the other Muslims, he said, if only you would go to Abyssinia, there's a king there who does not allow for anyone to be mistreated in his presence or in his land. And if only you all would go there until Allah provides a way out of this for us. So Uthman took the Prophet's suggestion, even though he wanted to stay, and Ruqayyah wanted to stay too, because she loved her father, and this was her home, but she knew it was best for her. You know, they were sad at having to leave their families and friends behind. But Ruqayyah said to him, she said, Allah is indeed with us. And Allah is indeed with those who we are leaving behind here at the Kaaba. So she and Uthman were amongst that group of immigrants who left Mecca, and they went towards Jeddah's sea coast. And it was from the sea coast of Jeddah that they boarded a ship and sailed towards Abyssinia. And they disembarked at the shore and traveled towards the inland until they arrived at the palace of the King Negus. And they told him of their migration to his land and told him that they were seeking refugee status. And just so you guys know, the distance between Mecca and Ethiopia is not close. That's a long journey. Even today, it's a long journey. And because of how long the journey is, just so you guys know, some of the immigrants died, and some of the people became sick, because that was a long ship sail. And back home in Mecca, the Quraysh, when they learned that some of the Meccans had left, they sent a delegation after them to try to bring them back. And that delegation was led by Amir ibn al-As and Ibn Abu Rabi'a. Amir was a close friend of the niggas and used to visit him and send him gifts. And that's where I'm going to stop in the story today, because it gets kind of messed up. Like I said, Ruqayyah was the weaker of the girls. She arrived, they made it to Absynia. She got a little sick, okay? She became a little sick too. She was amongst some of those, the people that became sick, because she was a little, she was more sensitive and weaker than the others. But she was happy because she was with the man of her life, Uthman. He was a good husband, and they were the perfect couple. And he showered her with nothing but love. And he showered her with all the riches that she wanted. She had beautiful clothing. He would buy her jewelry and buy her clothing and whatever toiletries that she liked. He used to shower her with his love, because he was a multimillionaire and can do that. So I'm going to stop right here today for her story. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to pick it up and continue on. I'm going to continue on with the second part. What happened? How did she and Uthman live in Abyssinia? How did she adapt to that climate and those circumstances? So, Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Are there any questions? Any questions or comments about what we discussed today about Ruqayyah? Any questions? Yes, she was the second oldest. Yeah, Zainab was older than her. She was the second oldest. Yes. And they were all close. They were all close as sisters. But Zainab was the first one to get married. Okay. Kulthum and Ruqayyah were so close in age. They just were like twins. They remind me of like Norto and Aisha. They did everything together. The hadith say that if you saw Ruqayyah, you'd always see Kulthum with her. That's how close they were. They did everything together. They went everywhere together, and they married two brothers. Subhanallah. But they were not able to enjoy their marriage because their father received the call to prophethood, and Jamil sent them back. Yes. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. I want to remind everybody, please donate to support this dawah effort, guys. Like I was telling y'all earlier, we only have $70 or something like that in our account. Oh God, yeah. Thanks to the sisters that donated yesterday and the day before. The stream has been paid. That was $300. But we still have our Zoom room has to come out. That video program that I use to make the videos has to come out. The PowerPoint program hasn't come out yet either. This is the beginning of the month still. So please, guys, support this dawah effort. And we need your donations. And look at the blessings you're getting. For anyone that joins this website and learns anything, you will get the reward for that. You're also getting whatever reward Allah gives to me and all the other brothers here behind this website. You're getting the reward for all the videos we make and everything. This is a good way of reaping good deeds that can help you get through the grave, guys, because people are dying. We never know when death can come. You want to go with as many good deeds as you can get in your favor. And what better deed than the deed of the gift of knowledge? You're giving knowledge, true understanding of the religion to the Muslims around the world. So please support this dawah effort. Yeah. Yes, there. Don't worry. Yeah, we did Zainab and Fatima. I'm going to do both. I wasn't, but I'm going to do both the daughters, Ruqayyah and Kulthum. And then I'm going to do the Prophet's stepdaughters. He had stepchildren too. I'm going to do his stepchildren after them too, inshallah. Yeah, and I'll do Baraka too. I'm going to do Baraka too. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see that you guys are enjoying. These are the sisters on Trova. I'm glad to see that you sisters are enjoying it. Yes, and have your kids participate. Your daughters, they need to learn about these female companions. Yes. May Allah bless you too. Okay, guys, I'm going to close out for right now. Tomorrow, we have the 6 o'clock class. Please read chapter 4 in the blue book, Diluting El-Wala Wal-Bara. The back of the book, chapter 4 of the second part. These are all the chapters that lead to volume 2. And don't forget to go to Amazon, because this is giving y'all enough time to go to Amazon and order the second volume. And that's the second volume. It's red. It's called Diluting El-Wala Wal-Bara Volume 2. It speaks about awakening faith in a non-faith centered world. Yeah, make sure y'all order that, because while we go through these last chapters in the blue book, this is giving you guys enough time. It's on Amazon. Yeah, Amazon.com. Yes, sister. No, it's the same price. Yeah, they said it's the same price. It's $19.99. And I prefer you guys buy the book, because guess what? That's also good charity. Because the money that you spend to buy the book goes to support safausa.org, the online homeschool. And I think that's how he can keep his tuition down. His tuition is not as high. I mean, some of these Islamic schools want $600 a month per child. I think his is just $300. His is half the price of theirs. And I think that's how he keeps the price low, because of the books. If we buy the books, he can take the money that from us buying the books to pay the teachers and stuff. Okay? So buy the book. Yeah. Somebody got a question? Okay. All right. So inshallah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Make sure that everybody is here tomorrow for the 6 o'clock class and the 9 o'clock. And I will put the schedule up tonight too, inshallah. And I'm changing, y'all see I changed the video. I'll make sure that I didn't know it was in the PowerPoint too. I'll change that PowerPoint picture too. All right. Okay, guys. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Everybody have a good night.